Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hot Girls Learn Hockey podcast. My name is Sarah. If you're new here, this is the show where we talk about all things hockey, the what to knows, the who to knows, and everything in between. And today is going to be a doozy of an episode, so I just want to jump straight into it. It is the timeline of the Game Changers universe. Now, what is Game Changers? Game Changers is a book series written by author Rachel Reed. We know her, we love her. And she has a series of books called Game Changers. There's 6 books total. There's Game Changers, Heated Rivalry, Tough Guy, Common Goal, Role Model, and then The Long Game. And they all deal with different couples besides like the Long Game and Heated Rivalry. They mainly focus on the same couple, and then the rest of the couples kind of make guest appearances in The Long Game. But it's a whole universe revolving around queer male hockey players. And one of the books right now is a very, very hot topic because it has been adapted to a show that is on Crave TV in Canada and HBO Max here in the US. And it is my new hyperfixation. I love this show. I love these books. I went and read all of them. I binged all, I had read Heated Rivalry and The Long Game, and I read those 2 in the day. And then the other 4, I binge read in 2. So safe to say, I've had this whole universe and these characters just completely taking over every square foot of my brain, and I need to talk about them to get them out. So I asked if you guys wanted to have me do an episode just going over basically the timeline of everything, and all of you guys said yes, or well, a lot of you guys said yes. So that's what today is going to be. I want to get into it, but first I just have 2 disclaimers. One, spoilers. There will be spoilers in this episode. If you are someone who wants to watch Heated Rivalry and not read the books, which I highly recommend that you do read the books, but if you're going to be one of those people who doesn't want to and you don't want the show to be spoiled for you, probably not the episode for you to watch. Maybe come back once all the episodes air. But other than that, no spoilers. So please watch at your own risk. And 2, there are going to be things that I leave out. It's mostly just kind of minute things this couple goes to this person's house, unless it has something major to do with their plot line. I'm not going to mention every single thing that's happening. This universe spans 2 decades, so there's a lot to cover. So those are my 2 disclaimers. I do want to give a shout out to the Game Changers wiki, because I pretty much put this whole timeline together based on my memory of the books and going through and just fact checking with all of them. But for some things that I just could not get a grasp of where they fit in the timeline, Game Changers wiki made their own timeline, which was very, very, very useful and helpful. So you can always go and check out the Game Changers wiki. The mods on there are amazing, and the people who contribute to that community are amazing as well. So yeah, I think the best place to start is just introducing all of the couples. So I'll introduce them all in their timelines respectively as I'm going through, but let's just go with the very first book in the series, which is Game Changers, and deals with Scott and Kip. The next one is Heated Rivalry, which is Shane and Ilya. Then there's Tough Guy with Ryan and Fabian, Common Goal with Eric and Kyle, and Role Model with Troy and Harris. And the last one, The Long Game, also deals with Shane and Ilya from Heated Rivalry. Oh, and also no Sharks Cup today with the seltzer. I have a Rebel from Dutch Bros. Not sponsored, wish it was, but I need energy for this, so cheers. So a lot of people will think that the universe of Heated Rivalry starts with Shane and Ilya back in 2008. But what if I told you that it started earlier? Because what a lot of people fail to remember is how the couple in Tough Guy, Ryan and Fabian, actually met back in 2004, because Fabian's family was Ryan's billet family, which, if you don't know what a billet family is when a junior hockey player goes and stays with a family other than theirs in order to play in a specific league that is far from their hometown and their family, and their family is unable to move. They stay with a billet family. So this all was back in 2004 when Fabian's family hosted Ryan, and that's how they met. And I'm going to jump ahead to December of 2008, where heated rivalry begins. And I'm going to be doing this in a timeline style, so I'll say the month and year and then what happens with all of these events. So December 2008 is when heated rivalry starts, and it's also the year that Ilya and Shane met at the World's Junior in Canada. They met each other for the first time after being pitted against each other for all their junior careers, and now they're finally meeting face to face. A couple months later, in June of 2009, is when their draft is, and Ilya gets drafted number 1 overall, Shane gets drafted number 2, which is only further ignites this rivalry that they have with each other. Later on in the next year, in July of 2010, they do a commercial together where the infamous shower scene happens that we see in episode 1 of the series, and they hook up for the very first time, which leads us to their rookie season, which is the 2010 to 2011 season, with Ilya playing for Boston and Shane playing for Montreal. And it's in January of 2011, so a little bit midway through the rookie season, that they start habitually hooking up, sneaking off to hotel rooms and penthouses. Shane buys a whole fucking building to hook up with Ilya in, so it's a whole big ordeal. If we jump ahead a couple of years to February of 2014, that's when the Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia are. A couple months later, June of 2014, is the Vegas scene. It's the NHL Awards, where they then have the Vegas scene afterwards. If you know, that scene of Ilya dragging a chair over to the bed consumes my every waking thought. Plus the image of Shane in just his socks, which is also a very interesting image to have. But yeah, so that happens in June of 2014. And then 2 years later, in June of 2016, is when Shane meets a actress named Rose, and they start hanging out with each other, and they start dating, and they're photographed together. And it's a couple months later, in January of 2017, when a hockey player named Scott Hunter, he is the captain of the New York Admirals, he goes to a smoothie shop and he gets a very watery smoothie from a cute little barista named Kip. And so this is when Game Changer starts. A couple of other things also happen in this month. Also in this month and year is when Ilya starts hooking up with a girl named Svetlana. So her dad is a former Boston Bears player, and she is also like one of the few people in his life right now that he like wants to talk to who speaks Russian. So he likes keeping her around and considers her a friend, as well as just obviously someone to hook up with, which is very interesting because in the show they're having her as his like childhood best friend, like their dads are friends together, but in the books they like meet through, I think, like mutual friends or just on like the club scene or whatever in Boston. And I'm only saying this because later on, once Shane and Ilya start dating, like he just stops talking to Svetlana and stopped hooking up with her for like 3 years. So I wonder how they'll play that off if they ever decide to have a season 2. Another thing that happens that I am so looking forward to in the show, based because we know that this scene is going to happen, is the nightclub scene where Shane and Rose are at a nightclub, and unbeknownst to Shane, Ilya is also at said nightclub, and Ilya's on the dance floor making out with this girl, and Shane is like dancing with Rose and then like gets separated and then sees Ilya and is literally just standing and like staring at him, and then they make eye contact, and it is just intense. And all this stuff. And then shortly after the nightclub scene is when Rose and Shane are having dinner, and Rose is like, you know what? I have a feeling that I'm not your type, Shane. I have a feeling that I have some appendages that you don't like and that you wish were different. And Shane's like, okay, that's very valid. Yeah, I'm gay. I like men. The way he really says it is a little bit graphic, but he's like, honestly, I would rather be the hole than the peg. Do with that information what you will. Shane Hollander, bottom king. So yeah, he pretty much, like, Rose is pretty much the first person that he like officially comes out to as gay. And then so they decide to just stay friends, and she's an ally. We love Rose. We also love Svetlana too. They're not enemies, okay? They're not enemies to Shane and Ilya, all right? But then they obviously break up, and now Rose knows about Shane being gay. Does not know about him and Ilya, but she knows that Shane is into men. And next month, in February of 2017, is when Scott and Kip officially start dating. In March of 2017, a couple things happen. This is when Scott and Kip get photographed together for the first time publicly, because Scott takes Kip to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York for Kip's birthday, and they get photographed together by people, and Scott's freaking the fuck out, and Kip's like really upset because he's like, I want to enjoy myself, but you're like freaking out and it's really bringing me down, which they do it differently in the show, but I digress. I mean, I'm not going to get into it, but that the order is all over the place when the show and the books, and they're not lining up, and I'm kind of not peeved about it, but I'm kind of confused about it. What also happens during this month and year is the phone call between Shane and Ilya, where Ilya is having trouble expressing his emotions because his English is, he's like, I just have too many emotions in English, I suck at it. And so Shane's like, well, why don't you just rant to me in Russian? I'm not going to know what you're saying. And that way you can get it all out, because you're stressed and you need to talk to somebody about it. And this is when Ilya does his rant in Russian, which I'm so fucking looking forward to Connor's Stories monologue, like 5-minute monologue in Russian. And where he, at the very end of it, goes, and also, I'm pretty sure I'm falling in love with you, and like, I don't know what to do about it. But it's all emotion, so Shane does not know that he says this. Next month after this, in April of 2017, is the scene where my baby, Shane, gets injured very badly in a game playing against Boston, so Ilya's team, where he gets a concussion, and I believe he also fractures his ribs or something like that. He's in like a neck brace, I'm pretty sure. But so he gets injured. Ilya freaks the fuck out, and then he goes and he visits Shane in the hospital, and that's where Shane in his inner monologue realizes that he's in love with Ilya, and he invites Ilya to spend 2 weeks with him at his cottage, just the two of them, with nobody else. And Ilya said, well, I'll think about it, because he's still kind of coming to his own terms of like, he obviously knows that he's bi, he likes men and women, but what does this have to do with his feelings with Shane, and should he act on them? So he's dealing with all this. He says, maybe to the cottage. This month also starts playoffs for Scott's team, as well as Ilya's team too, but Ilya gets knocked out and Shane's not playing, and Montreal ends up getting knocked out. But Scott's also starting playoffs, and him and Kip, things are a little bit rocky, because he's just kind of leaving Kip in the apartment by himself, and like, I don't know, kind of neglecting him. He's just not being a very good boyfriend. And no surprise, the next month in May, Kip ends up ending things with Scott. But this is kind of the wake-up call for Scott, because later on that month, he kind of gets his head out of his ass, and he decides to come out to his teammates and come out to his coaching staff. And him and Kip end up mending things, and he apologizes, and they get back together. Which all leads us to a day in June of 2017, when it's Game 7 of the finals between New York and don't know the other team that they were playing. But Scott Hunter is in the finals, and he's about to win the Stanley Cup with his team. And in Montreal, Shane is watching on his TV. In Boston, Ilya is watching on his. And they watch. New York wins. And Scott gets his hands on the Stanley Cup, gives it a little kiss, does his victory lap. And then he's looking around at all his teammates, and he's like, all my teammates, they have like their wives and their children, and they're celebrating this huge accomplishment that we just achieved. I want my boyfriend out here. So then he has Scott, who's watching the game obviously in person, come down to the ice, and in front of God and everyone on live national TV, he and Scott kiss, which pretty much, they're out. Scott Hunter is gay. I mean, he has a boyfriend who he loves very much. And like I mentioned, Ilya and Shane are both watching this separately. Then they're texting each other while watching this. And this event is what prompts Ilya to accept his Shane's invitation to go to the cabin. So then next month after this, in July of 2017, is when Ilya goes to the cottage, Shane's cottage that he invites him to. But he does this after the NHL awards, which Scott Hunter gets the award for MVP of the league. And in his speech, he basically kind of confirms like, yeah, I'm gay. That's my boyfriend. I love him. And he's like, also, there's a Scott Hunter at this gay club nearby. You can come if you want. If you don't want to, it's fine too. And Ilya ends up going, because Ilya is also nominated for MVP of the league. He doesn't win, obviously, but Ilya does show up. So Scott Hunter's like, that's very interesting. I'm keeping my eye on you. He basically just goes to kind of be like, congrats, man. I really respect what you did, and hopefully this is a move in the right direction. Shane more or less does the same thing too. He doesn't go to the nightclub, but he does email Scott and tell him pretty much the same thing, like he respects him. And both of them, without really saying it, are just like kind of telling Scott, like, I'm also queer, and I'm very happy that you had the courage to come out and kind of start this whole movement, because hopefully we can follow suit, maybe, potentially. But now let's go back to the cottage. So it's at the cottage where Ilya finally tells Shane that he loves him. Shane tells Ilya that I love you too. And they end up becoming official and being together, and then they end up getting caught by Shane's dad. So then they also, very quickly after becoming official, come out to Shane's parents. Shane comes out to his parents as gay, and then Ilya and Shane come out to his parents as, being together. So now we're kind of at like well, where do we go from here? So their plan is that first they need to squash this whole rivalry thing. So then they decide to hold a press conference where they're coming out together with a foundation called the Irina Foundation, which is named after Ilya's mom, because his dad passed away from Alzheimer's, but his mom actually committed suicide, and Ilya was run to find her. So mental health and mental struggles and suicide prevention is very near and dear to his heart, and Irina was her name. So they start the Irina Foundation in order to raise money for mental health support and suicide awareness, and they also decide to host hockey camps starting the next summer together to also raise money, and they're gonna have like their NHL friends go and everything. And it's also around this time when Shane's friend Hayden Pike from Montreal, it's like his best friend from the team, ends up walking in on Shane and Ilya, and they are like, oh fuck. And so then now Hayden knows about Shane and Ilya. Shane's parents know about Shane and Ilya, and I believe it's also around this time that he tells Rose as well, so now she also knows about Shane and Ilya. Also happens around this time is Ilya ends things with Svetlana, and he also decides that he is going to go and play for Ottawa, which is closer to Montreal than Boston is. He also just doesn't really feel safe in America anymore, so he's like, I'm jumping to Canada. And he always jokes with Shane. I'm like, oh, I should just marry you to become a Canadian citizen. Like, that would be way easier. But keep that in mind. But then heated rivalry ends when it's September of 2018, and Shane and Ilya play their first game against each other, where Ilya is on the Ottawa team and Shane is playing for Montreal still. And it's also in the summer of 2018 when a little cherub named Harris starts working for the Ottawa Centaurs, Ilya's team, and he becomes their like kind of social media, like I don't know if he's the manager yet, but he just does all the social media stuff for the team. And also in September of 2018, when heated rivalry ends, is when Tough Guy starts with Ryan Price, who I believe was playing for Buffalo before he gets traded to Toronto to go play there. So he moves there, and that's where he reconnects with Fabian, which, like I mentioned before, he stayed with their family. Fabian's family was Ryan's billet family, and they reconnect once Ryan moves to Toronto. So that should be around October of 2018. Also around this time is when Shane officially comes out to his teammates and his coaching staff. He is not like making a whole big statement about it to come out to the public yet, but now in the hockey world, it's just like the rumblings of, oh, Shane Hollander is gay. So that kind of is out in the open. And another player is also queer, but he just doesn't like outright come out and just like make a big spectacle of it, and that is Ryan Price, who we just mentioned. His whole status is just like he's very like socially awkward, and he's just a very anxious person. He does not like all the attention being on him, which it's a great profession, being a professional hockey player. But his gayness is kind of just like an open secret. It's like he's not going to deny it if you ask him, but he's still not going to like go walking around with a rainbow flag tied around his waist like 24/7. So Ryan and Fabian, they reconnect in October of 2018, and the next month in November of 2018 is when they end up hooking up for the very first time. And this is also when Ryan decides to just outright come out to his team because of some homophobic comments from the piece of shit player named Dallas Kent. We hate you, Dallas Kent. you're not a real person, but we hate you. And he's being a homophobic asshole. And so Ryan's like, you know what? Hey, dude, I'm gay. Do you have a problem with it? And one thing about Ryan is that he's a fighter. Like his role in the team is to be the guy that fights, which he doesn't want to be. And Fabian doesn't like it. And that's like a whole thing. And pretty much is what leads to January of 2019 when a couple things happen. One, Ryan and Fabian break up because Fabian wants Ryan to quit hockey. Another one is a goaltender named Eric Bennett. He's actually the goaltender for Scott's team in New York. He and his wife divorced, which is, I'll mention it because it's a very key point to his whole plot line, so just bear with me there. And also, second act breakup, Fabian and Ryan end up getting back together because Ryan is just like, you know what, maybe Fabian has a point because my body, I'm not doing too well, and also I'm not happy playing hockey anymore. So this is also around the time that he decides he's going to officially retire from hockey, which then we're going to jump ahead into July of 2019. It is the first week of the hockey camps that Shane and Ilya are starting to raise money for the Irina Foundation, and they ask Ryan, or specifically Ilya asks Ryan, because they've become friends, to come and be a defense coach for the camp. And it's when Ryan Price now joins the list of people who know about Shane and Ilya because he walks in on them making out like after one of the days of the camp. Jumping ahead to November of 2019 is when Scott and Kip officially get engaged. And then later on that month at the Kingfisher, which is the gay bar that Kip frequents a lot, and he also works there as a bartender, Scott and Kip have their engagement party there where the aforementioned Eric Bennett, the goaltender, he meets a bartender named Kyle who has like a little unrecorded crush on Kip. He really likes Kip, but obviously Scott and Kip are like just so stupid in love, it's ridiculous. So Kyle's just trying to get over like his little silly crush on him. Meets Kyle, they connect. Kyle is out and about, gay. He works at a gay bar. He is very out and queer. Eric is bisexual because, like I mentioned before, him and his wife had just gotten divorced earlier that year, and they had been married for a really long time, but he'd known that he was also attracted to men. So now in this new era of his life, divorced and pretty much ready to retire from the NHL, he wants to explore this side of him that he never really got to, of being attracted to and wanting to like be with a man. Kyle like finds out about this and is like, I will be your guide. Like, I will help you navigate this new territory with meeting men and also how to hook up with them. So this is how their whole relationship ends up starting, and is where our book Common Goal starts as well. And the next month, December of 2019, is when Eric decides to officially come out to Scott as being bisexual. And he also tells him that he wants to retire, but he's not fully going to, come out and do it just yet. Also this month, like I mentioned, Eric and Kyle start hooking up, but then later on in February of 2020 is when they end up ending things, and it's that whole second arc breakup. They're going to get back together. Also, what I want to mention is that in this universe, COVID did not happen, so 2020 is just another year because COVID never happened in this universe. And then 2 months after this, in April of 2020, is when Eric officially retires from hockey, and then he and Kyle get back together and they start publicly dating, and this is kind of what ends Common Goal, but also how they end it too is Eric and Scott end up purchasing the Kingfisher bar, remember the gay bar, and Kyle becomes the manager of said bar. Jumping forward to July of 2020, it's when Kip and Scott end up getting married, and this is also when the long game starts. So the long game and role model take place at the same exact time, so I will be going back and forth for plot lines for the next couple of minutes, but they both are things that happen at the same time. They just happen from different points of views in different books. Get it? Got it. Good. So now July 2020 is when the long game starts, because this is the second year of the hockey camps, and now Scott Hunter is officially a coach there. So they're doing the hockey camp, Shane and Ilya, and then they end up going on their first official public date with Ryan and Fabian. It's like a little double date thing, and then they also go to one of Fabian's shows because Fabian's a musician. And it's around this time that we're getting the vibe from Ilya that he is starting to get a little bit restless and a little bit tired of having to hide his relationship. All he wants to do is publicly, show off this incredible man that he has bagged. And Shane is still really not that comfortable with doing that yet. But it's at this time where kind of Familia's inner monologue, we're getting the sense of he's feeling a little bit restless from all the secretive-ness that they're doing. And then later on in October of 2020 is when Shane and Ilya get married. Okay, well, they don't get officially married, but they're babysitting for Hayden, remember him and his wife's kids, because his wife twists her ankle, so they're watching their children while they go to the hospital. And his 2 daughters are like, are you guys boyfriends? Well, you guys should get married then. And so then they have a little fake wedding ceremony, and it's actually really sweet scene, and it's super cute. So that happens. And 1 month later, in November of 2020, remember the piece of shit Dallas Kent that we mentioned, who played for Toronto with Ryan? Well, it has come out that he is actually even more of a piece of shit because he is a rapist and has tons of sexual assault allegations that have been posted against him on Reddit, to which his good buddy Troy Barrett, who is also in Toronto, reads these, and then during a closed practice calls Dallas Kent a fucking rapist. And someone films that and then ends up posting that online, to which Toronto, which in this universe, Toronto's team is, and their coaching staff and management is pieces of shit, really. They are like, you know what, Troy, maybe your talents are better elsewhere. So we're trading you to Ottawa. So he is going to play on Ilya's team. And now this is where the next book, Role Model, starts. So this is when Troy and Harris, remember the little cherub social media guy that I mentioned before? This is where they meet. A month later, in December of 2020, Ilya ends up taking Troy to the Kingfisher when they're playing in New York. And it's when they're walking from the Kingfisher, whatever, back to their hotel, when Ilya comes out to Troy as bisexual and Troy comes out to Ilya as gay, because Troy has known that he's been gay for a long time. He had a boyfriend before he got traded, but they broke up. So he's just not out publicly, and really he wanted to I think he still wanted to be public with his last boyfriend, but he was also famous, so it was kind of tricky in that way too. But they end up coming out to each other, and Troy is pulling a Scott and is like, isn't Shane Hollander also gay? And you're bi, and you guys are really good friends, and you go on a camp together? That's very interesting. And then Ilya is just like, this conversation is over. All right, bye. So now Troy is the first person that Ilya is officially come out to, as being one of his friends, which also just adds to the whole restlessness of Ilya wanting to just be out and have people know about him and know about his and Shane's relationship. Hi, sorry for the abrupt audio cut. This is Editing Sarah here. I can't believe I forgot to mention this in the entire next 20 or 10 minutes. But also at this time, Ilya also decides to start therapy because he's becoming a little bit more depressed and he's worried he's gonna pull a his mom, if you know what I mean. So he's seen his therapist. His therapist also knows about Shane and Ilya. And that's a very important part, and I'm so sorry that I missed all of that. But yeah, no, that is also happening. Okay, back to the scheduled programming. Okay, love you guys. Bye. Which leads us to December of 2020, when Ilya and Shane get into a really big fight on Christmas, and Ilya kind of just comes right out and just I've been sick of hiding. And then Shane's kind of blindsided. He's I didn't know we had issues. And Ilya's well, we do. And then they fight, but then they end up making up, and it's good. You really can't break this couple. They've been through so much, which leads me to the part of the long game that every time I read it, I cry a lot because it is now January of 2021, and to set the scene, there's a string of away games for Ottawa, and it starts in Raleigh, North Carolina. Ottawa plays, they win, and they immediately have to get into a plane to go to Tampa and play in Florida the very next day. But their flight has to make an emergency landing because one of the engines gives out. They lose an engine. There's a fire on the outside of the plane. The plane drops 20 feet in the air. And on this plane is Ilya, as well as Troy and Harris. Ilya is sitting by himself in a row, and Troy and Harris are sitting next to each other. And we get the point of view of the plane crash, or not really crash, but the plane incident from Ilya's point of view in the long game. And then Harris's point of view in Role Model. I cry every time that I read Ilya's point of view of this, because the only thing that he's thinking of as this plane is potentially going down is, I love Shane so much, and I can't believe that I'm gonna die without having the whole world know how wonderful our love is. Okay, I'm actually gonna stop. I'm actually gonna stop with that, because I actually feel like I'm going to start crying if I talk more about it. It's a very beautiful it's a very beautiful scene. I can literally feel like tears wanting to come out, but it's okay. The plane ends up landing, and they have to just make an emergency landing, but it does make it on the floor of the tarmac or whatever, and everyone's fine. No one's injured. Everyone's just very, very shaken up, as you would be if you thought that your plane was about to crash. And the things that result from this plane incident are very beneficial to these men that are on the flight, the ones that we're talking about, Troy, Harris, and Ilya. Ilya, Shane finds out about the plane. Ilya calls him, and Shane is just like, this whole thing puts in perspective. Shane is like, man, I could have lost him. Like, I would have died too if Ilya died, and I would have gone on the rest of my life, and again, no one would have known how wonderful and beautiful our relationship was, and how much we loved each other. And this prompts Shane to do a lot of thinking about his and Ilya's future. But also later on that same night as the plane incident, when they're actually in Florida, is when Troy and Harris end up hooking up for the very first time, which then starts their relationship and their kind of love story. So once Ilya does get back home to Ottawa from the string of away games, he goes to the house. Shane is there waiting for him, and leads into the living room where there's candles everywhere. And remember how I joked about Ilya joking about marrying Shane for Canadian citizenship? Well, Shane pulled an Uno reverse, and Shane proposes to Ilya, to which obviously Ilya says, of course, I'll marry you. So now they're officially engaged, and they make plans to both get married and officially come out that following summer. It is right after this that Svetlana enters the picture again, because Ilya wants to tell more of his friends about him and Shane before they decide to come out publicly, and Svetlana was always a really good friend to him. So I love the scene where he's talking to her, and he comes out as, liking men, and then tells Svetlana that it's Shane Hollander is the man that he is in love with and also engaged to. And that scene is just so funny. I love Svetlana. I love her. I love Rose so much. The next month, in February of 2021, is when Troy ends up coming out to his mom, and he also comes out to the team, both as being gay, but also as him and Harris are dating. He's like, I'm gay, I'm dating Harris, fucking deal with it. But Ottawa's a chill team, and they don't really give a shit. They're like, oh dude, sick, awesome. And then he also decides to come out publicly at their team's Pride Night, which ironically was against Toronto. But I guess it's good, because Dallas kind of at this point in the timeline got arrested because his victims decide to come forth and press charges against him. So he's not playing on this night. So all attention is on Troy. All the love is on Troy, and everyone's just super, super supportive, which only just makes Ilya so much more excited to be coming out officially. Now, I need to mention March of 2021, because this is a big, big month. So Troy coming out to his team and coming out publicly is where Role Model ends, but we still have to finish up the long game. And to set this scene, remember Hayden, Shane's teammate who knows about Shane and Ilya? When Shane and Ilya are over at him and his wife's house one day, Hayden needs to go and film what it's called, fan mail, but it's that universe's version of cameos. He has to go film one for someone who ordered one from him. And also at this same time, Shane and Ilya go out to the car to go grab something, and then they go off to the side of the house and they start macking. And unbeknownst to all three of them, in the background of the video that Hayden is making for this fan, there's a mirrored image of the window outside showing Shane and Ilya making out. Hayden does not see this. He sends this to the fan. The fan definitely sees this, screen records it, and posts it on Twitter. To which the very next day, Hayden's showing up at their doorstep. They haven't looked at their phone yet. Neither of them have. And he's like, oh my gosh. And he explains what happened. So now the entire world has seen Shane and Ilya kissing. And they are kissing. Like, they are going at it. To which then they get a lovely email from the NHL commissioner's office saying that the NHL commissioner wants to meet with him, and he's not happy. He already wasn't happy with the whole Shane being gay. Like, not that he didn't outright say he had a problem with Shane being gay, but he was like, you be gay, but just don't like talk about it, like focus on the hockey. He also wasn't really happy with Troy when Troy was posting about support for victims of sexual and domestic assault. So he's just kind of a piece of shit in this universe. And it's the same thing now with Shane and Ilya. He's basically telling them, like, we are going to put out a statement saying that it was a prank and that you guys are not together and you guys it'll be fine. And so then Shane is like, okay, fuck that. No, this is what we are going to do. We're going to put out a joint statement saying that we're in love and we've been together for over 10 years. Then we're going to get married in the summer and that'll be it, and we'll continue playing hockey. And they walk out hand in hand and go get some chicken parm, which is a very cute scene. It's like the first time they're actually holding hands in public and going out somewhere in public to eat together. And it's gorgeous, and we love love. But along with the NHL commissioner not being happy, Shane's team is not very happy with him. Hayden already knew and everything, but Shane's other friend JJ was pretty pissed that Shane didn't tell him about him and Ilya being together. He knew about him being gay, but didn't know about the Ilya thing. And the rest of his team had already known that he was gay, but they were more pissed at the fact that he's been dating Ilya this entire time. Because, again, rivals, they play on different teams, and they just really have an issue with this, which is perfect timing for fucking Montreal and Ottawa to play against each other in the playoffs. Am I right, ladies? So then they end up playing. It gets to game 7. In game 7, Shane ends up tripping, and this is what causes Ottawa to take the lead, and Ottawa advances to the next round of the playoffs, which leads Montreal's players to accuse Shane of pretty much, tripping on purpose and letting Ottawa win. To which then he says, okay, fuck you guys. We've been together this entire time that we've been winning the cup and making it to playoffs. If I wanted to let my boyfriend win, I would have, but we're both very competitive people. So actually, fuck you and actually fuck this. Ilya's team is great. Ottawa is great. The managers, the owners, the coaching staff, all the teammates, his team is just great, and Shane is starting to get a little bit jealous of how much support Ilya is getting. So this puts us in April of 2021. Montreal's out of the playoffs. Ottawa's about to go to the second round against New York when Scott Hunter ends up visiting Shane and Ilya and talks to them about how he wants to start a pretty much group of active and former NHL players, as well as just hockey players and people in sports in general, to combat the toxic culture surrounding hockey, like the homophobia, the racism, transphobia, stuff like that. He wants to pretty much just create a group of kind of advocates to help out these people. And the next month after this, in May of 2021, is when Shane decides, okay, fuck Montreal, my contract's up, I'm going to Ottawa, because there's no rule against boyfriends playing on the same team with each other. So Ilya's like, dude, sick, come over here. And this is kind of where we're wrapping up the long game. Also this month that Shane decides to leave Montreal is when Shane and Ilya announced their engagement publicly. They had already announced that they were together publicly. Now they're announcing their engagement. 2 months after that, in July, Shane officially signs with Ottawa. And then later on that month is when officially Shane and Ilya get married. And October of 2021 is when they start their first season of playing together on the Ottawa Centaurs, which is where we end our timelines. That was over pretty much like almost 2 decades of events that have happened in this universe. And I hope I didn't miss anything. If I did, please let me know. But boy, did a lot happen in this universe. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching or listening. Go read the Game Changer series books. Go watch Heated Rivalry. I want a season 2. The people want a season 2. So we need to make sure that this happens. So go support Rachel Reed. Go support Connor Story and Hudson Williams and Jacob Tierney. Just go and do it. It's great. But yeah, next episode will be the Team Canada blind building for the Olympics, which these might be the only teams that actually go to Team Canada, because who knows if the NHL is gonna let any play of their players go play for the Winter Olympics. We'll see how fast they finish this arena. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go look up the Winter Olympics for 2026 and you'll see a bunch of articles about it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. It does help out a lot. If you are listening to this on Spotify, please make sure to give the show a good rating. You can always follow the show's Instagram page. It's at Hot Girls Learn Hockey, or the show's TikTok page, which is at HGLHpod. If you want to see a bunch of reposted Heated Rivalry edits, TikTok is the place to be. Hi everyone, editing Sarah again. I don't know where the footage for the rest of this episode went, where I say thank you and goodbye, but here's me doing that. So thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.